Why would Angel Reese want Caitlin Clark in this new league? If Caitlin Clark is there, the spotlight of Angel Reese, it becomes a shadow.
After Caitlin Clark secured that incredible deal with the newbie league, which was stumbling its way into women's basketball and, to be honest, might as well have written the book on cluelessness, Angel Reese went crazy. They began by enlisting every player under the sun except for the one star who could truly make them famous.
Unfortunately, it's a star that most people don't like.
Yes, they lined up Rays, A.A. Wilson, and an entire squad of nearly all of their players in the hopes that this mix would work miraculously. What were they smoking? Eventually, someone over there was able to piece together enough clues to realize that, yes, Caitlin Clark is their only chance at even sembling success.
They are offering Caitlin Clark $1 million for 2 months of her services. $1 million to carry a new basketball league from January to March.
Now that they've realized we might need Caitlin, they've thrown bags of cash at her. Reese, meanwhile, is left watching the real superstar leave with the prize, practically exploding with excitement as Unrivaled finally understands that they're nothing more than a desperate circus without Clark.
Unrivaled is going to feature the 30 best pretend basketball players, with the vast majority of them being anonymous. Now, they do have one star committed to playing in the league.
This so-called league has the gall to claim that it will revolutionize women's basketball, but without Caitlin Clark, they are merely forgettable. The Unrivaled League is desperately looking for a spark to make it happen, but when your entire roster is made up of who-the-fuck players, there isn't much chance of igniting the sports world.
And in the same vein, they were also liking negative comments about Caitlin Clark from the official Unrivaled basketball Instagram account, during the season. So all of these things were just not a good look.
Let's discuss TNT's outrageous investment. They have a $100 million deal that spans 6 years, and they are banking all that money on viewership goals. Do they even realize what they have committed to? Without Starlight Clark, those TV ratings will be lower than the temperature in Antarctica, where people are tuning in to watch a lineup that looks like a phone book of nobodies. In the hopes that Clark could be the miracle fix, TNT has essentially written a check for a league without a foundation. Every time Clark takes the court, arenas are packed with fans like it's the playoffs. Venues actually have to increase seating to accommodate the crowd she attracts, but does Unrivaled have that kind of pull without her? Their delay isn't just incomprehensible, it's offensive. Clark is a powerhouse, and an Unrivaled knows it. Put her name on the roster, and you'd have ticket lines wrapping around the block. The most marketable player in women's basketball, Clark, was kept waiting for 3 whole months, while 26 other names were introduced in the hopes that they would gain any traction without the biggest star in the sport. Now, they are in full-on panic mode, frantically trying to hide months of neglect with a Hail Mary attempt that begs for our salvation. Caitlin, their desperate late-game tactics highlight how badly they've run the alleged league from the start, and the PR team would undoubtedly win the prize for the most self-defeating social media strategy in sports history. Rather than attracting Clark, they actively participated in disparaging remarks about her.
Unrivaled League needs Caitlin Clark, and they are preparing to offer her a massive deal. But is it all too little too late?
It seems as though their official channels were unable to decide whether they wanted the player they are now pleading to join on board or off. But disparaging the superstar you need isn't exactly a winning tactic. All they were able to demonstrate was that they are utterly out of touch with what fans truly want. If you want to see how to properly court a star like Clark, just look at Ice Cube and his big 3-league Ice Cube acknowledged her value right away, without hesitation or games, and made a generous offer. He put his money where his mouth is by giving Clark more money than he gives some ex-NBA players, demonstrating that they are unmatched exactly how it should be done. However, they are too preoccupied with regretting their own poor choices to realize how far behind they have fallen in comparison to the Big Three's Noon's approach. He wasted time playing around with inferior options, and most definitely didn't play petty games on social media. Unmatched Frenzied Scramble appears completely amateurish. Fast forward to the present, and Unmatched is flinging cash around like confetti at a parade, proposing Clark a ridiculously complicated deal worth a cool $1 million for only 2 months, with a possible share in the business.
Caitlin Clark doesn't need any money. She has plenty of endorsement deals. I think she is totally fine. And I think for her body and for her mental health, it might not be the best thing for her.
They're throwing everything at her feet in the hopes that she'll fall for the ruse. But if they really valued her, they would have been at her door months ago rather than waiting until every other plan had failed. This last-minute cash grab is more about hiding their epic blunder than it is about acknowledging Clark's talent.
So do I think Caitlin Clark should join Unrivaled? I'm not so sure. I think that the money needs to be high. It needs to be in the millions. It needs to be at least what Cube offered her for the big three at minimum.
However, even with a ton of money on the table, Clark has every reason to avoid Unrivaled because it is a league without a strong foundation, no track record, and, to be honest, no idea. Signing with them runs the risk of bringing her name down to their level as a shaky startup with zero credibility. She has a reputation to maintain, and attaching herself to this train wreck is a risk she doesn't need. If anything, the real question here isn't whether Clark should accept the offer, but rather whether Unrivaled deserves her at all.
I thought WNBA players didn't like Caitlin Clark.
Now, let's just pause to enjoy the absolute comedy that is Angel Reese's response to Caitlin Clark's glitzy, record-breaking agreement. I mean, what a meltdown. Reese is constantly venting her financial frustrations about her meager $75,000 WNBA salary. She used to act like Clark was just another person in the crowd, but now that Clark is winning $1 million, the jealousy is practically radiating off of her, and Reese is unable to contain herself. It's like witnessing the most obvious act of jealousy in basketball history.
So Angel Reese is playing in this league. Dejanay Carrington is playing in this league. Obviously, I feel like that's the biggest name where there is some sort of tension. Whether there's tension between Caitlin and Dejanay, we don't know, but there is still that narrative.
For months, Reese minimized Clark's impact, presumably believing she would be content without him. However, now that Clark has received that fat, unmatched check, Reese's story has completely changed, and the narrative about Clark is no longer relevant. She is witnessing Clark being courted with benefits and a salary that would make any WNBA player gasp. Rays, who rolled her eyes once when Clark is brought up. It's ironic. No, it's hilarious to watch her compelled to admit that Clark has far more market power than she has.
This is your opportunity to see if you can survive without her. This is your opportunity to see if Angel Reese is enough of a draw to carry a new league. I think the answer's no, but
Angel Reese is participating in this league, and Carrington is participating as well. It seems to me that this is the largest name where conflict exists, whether it be between Caitlin and Dee or something else entirely, but there is still the narrative and the enormous compensation. There's a gap with athletes like A.A. Wilson, who is also likely feeling left behind. Wilson may openly support an unprecedented move to acquire Clark, but let's face it, she can't be happy when Clark outpaces her in endorsement deals. Despite the fact that Wilson and Reese are both household GS in the WNBA, they aren't bringing in as much money as Clark. Even with her well-known antics and outspoken media presence, Rays is unable to match the volume of deals. Reese is merely allowed to watch from the sidelines as Clark's Landing, Nike, State Farm, and everything else are thrown money at him. These agreements serve as more than simply financial gain. They serve as a stark reminder of Clark's influence, the type Reese could only hope for. Seeing Clark's face plastered all over advertising campaigns must be heartbreaking when your own financial difficulties are always in the news, and seeing Clark receive all the attention only highlights the gap, and Reese's annoyance is evident in her public response. This is your chance.
What Ice Cube offered Caitlin before the Big Three season began. I commend Ice Cube because you have to think about the type of ego.
Imagine top players deciding it's time to leave the NBA after seeing Clark's paycheck and become weary of making shit while she's receiving millions. If Clark does go to Unrivaled, the league is in serious trouble. If Unrivaled starts paying, the WNBA, which cannot afford a talent drain, may lose its best players. This isn't just a boost for Unrivaled. It's a warning sign that the WNBA can't stay up and a direct challenge to their already precarious position. Establishment of finances.
here's the potential problem. Caitlin Clark already has money. She signed a $28 million deal with Nike. She's got endorsement deals from State Farm.
However, it's important to remember that Clark's game is 5-on-5. She is an expert in traditional basketball, not some pickup style 3-on-3 format. If you put her in an unmatched little experiment, you have to wonder if it will even work. Critics have already questioned whether 3-on-3 can maintain interest, which means that Unrivaled would bet their entire league on Clark's shoulders. Unrivaled better pray, and she could carry them because without her, they would be headed quickly towards irrelevance. It is nearly unheard of in women's sports for Caitlyn to have a $28 million Nike endorsement in addition to partnerships from brands like State Farm. Brands really compete with her for marketability.